Hey guys, I hope everybody's doing well. I just wanted to take a brief minute. I won't take much of your time, but I wanted to go over give a brief explanation for the bonus points. The first, let me affirm for those of you who did that, let me affirm you for that. It's okay if you didn't. There'll be more. It's too late to do them now. However, when I do these bonus points, as I mentioned in a previous video, they're typically things that are outside of the scope of class, but they're things you need to be familiar with. And most of you are probably familiar with most of these credentials. I certainly wasn't when I first came into this industry. When I first started at Lone Star, I had no idea what any of this stuff was. It was all brand new to me, honestly. So, these are just everyday acronyms we use in our profession in some sort or another. So I just wanted to run down them real quick. There was one that tripped most people up, but everybody that did them mostly got almost all of them right. PHP kind of messed up a few people, and SOP messed up a few people, but other than that, everybody got them pretty good. So I also want to say that for those that I emailed who have 100% already in this class and still did this, I just want to give you extra props, because that's the kind of effort it takes for our clients, right? For us to be successful as LCDCs and go above and beyond for our clients, we have to do research when we don't want to. We have to look for new innovative ways to present things to our clients. And so just props to you, knowing you didn't need the points and you weren't going to get any points, but you did it anyway. And that just speaks volumes to what you're going to do in your career, right? So again, extra props for you for that. So one is LCDC. Obviously, that's what most of us are in here for, so that's a no-brainer, right? Licensed Chemical Dependency Counselor. Now, that's a Texas license, and one of you even noted state license versus certification license or versus certification. I mean, fantastic. But that is a Texas state license. They're called different things in every state, right? So the ADC is a certification for alcohol and drug counselor. And let me back up for a second too. I don't care if you Googled these or however you came across them, maybe you already knew them. But it's not about that for me. It's about you just becoming familiar with what they are, right? So an ADC is an alcohol and drug counselor certification. It's through IC and RC. IC and RC you need to be familiar with, and it's in your LCDC resources in D2L. But it is where you will register to. It's part of the ADC exam is the same exam for the LCDC license. Now, I've had some pretty intense conversations, we'll call it, with their, I don't know if their president, you'd call him, Frank Davis. He's a wonderful guy, very helpful, just a great dude. And I've asked him what's the value of this certification, and he gives me the pretty standard answer of reciprocity in other states and blah, blah, blah. Only value I've really found in this credential and keeping it is that if you ever want to be an SAP, which is a substance abuse professional, that's an actual credential, not just a saying. I mean, I guess technically we're all as LCDC substance abuse professionals, but that's an actual credential I have. And they don't call it a certification or a license. They're very careful by the way they word it. They want you to either say you are qualified as an SAP or you're not. And there's a training you do, and if anybody's interested in that information, I'll certainly give that to you. But you have to have your ADC to get your IADC, which is International Alcohol and Drug Counselor. Now, the funny thing is there's no extra work for that. It's just a $30 payment, and they email you the certificate. But you have to have the IADC to become an SAP. It's all about money sometimes, and that's just the way the world works. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, but that's the value of that credential for me. That's why I keep it. An LMFT is a licensed marriage and family therapist. I think that speaks for itself. LPC is a licensed professional counselor. An LCSW is a licensed clinical social worker. And they can hold, there's a big debate on LPC and a CSW, right, is which opens more doors. Of course, a social worker is going to tell you that does. I've never had a problem opening a door with my LPC license. So, you'll get there as you go. Right now, we're focused on the chemical dependency license, but just be aware. So detox tripped a couple people up. Detox, DTX, really was referring to like a detox unit in a treatment center. That's the abbreviation they use. PHP, our RTC is Residential Treatment Center. We look for RTCs for a lot of our patients or a lot of our clients, depending on the setting, what you use the language there. I generally call mine clients. But the treatment center I worked at for many years was a hospital setting, and they referred to them as patients. So you're not wrong either way. I think client sounds better for me. PHP is Partial Hospitalization Program. That's a day program where you go from like 8 to 4:30, 8 to 5, whatever it is, usually 5 days a week to a facility. And then IOP is intensive outpatient, and these are very different, right? You go 2 to 3 hours a day, 3 to 4 days a week, anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, depending on the place and the program, right? SOP tripped a lot of people up. Just you weren't right, but you weren't wrong. He said standard outpatient. I don't think there's such a thing as that. It's supportive outpatient is the verbiage there, and the idea there, and those look very different as well, depending on the place. But they are, 1 to 2 days a week at the most, with just very few hours. Every place has a different setup for that. One place I really like, called Winds of Change, they have it set up where you meet in person once a week for like the IOP group for 2 or 3 hours, and then they do a phone call and either a phone call or video sessions, how their SOP set up. So the idea behind those, from detox to SOP, for those that offer an SOP, not everywhere does, is a step down process. Right, you're medically supervised in detox. You see nursing staff, you see the doctor daily or the physician's assistant, whichever. But you live there, right? And then you have an RTC where you live there for the 30 days. You don't see the doctor every day. PHP, the idea is you step down where you are having more freedoms. You go home at night, and then you have the group structure to stay accountable and to stay structured, actually. Then IOP is you have more freedom. You're less, but you still have the accountability in the group, and then SOP is less, and on down. So, I hope that was helpful in some way. If you're familiar, great. You already know it was nothing to it. But if you were unfamiliar, I hope this was helpful in some way. And again, there'll be plenty more opportunities for bonus points and along the way through the semester. Look, outside of not doing your work, I really make it almost impossible to fail this course. I will always work with you with extra credit and those kinds of things. So, like I've mentioned before, there'll be some full-on extra credit assignments about midway through the semester. I usually release those. But in the meantime, I generally release bonus points every time there's a quiz. Sometimes, I just like, hey, 5 points if you do this today. I might do that occasionally. I might do it tonight. I might do it next week. You never know. So check your announcements regularly, guys. But look, I hope you're settled in. I hope things are moving along. If I can be of any help, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll talk soon.